Ooh. Ladies, gentlemen, gamers, and fellow League of Legends lovers, and haters, and players, and patch note enjoyers. Welcome back to another patch notes review by yours truly, Chris Allen. We are here at the patch 14.21 notes. We're here to review it with my Gigamind. And since there is the World's Pass out, which is one of the longest passes, I have been playing, which means I have a somewhat, at least I would like to think, good grasp on the game. Plus, I have over 10 years of experience. Not 200 years of game design experience, but 10 years of experience, nonetheless. So, let's take a look at the patch. I always say it, rest in peace, Surrender 20. But because Surrender 20 is no longer with us for a while now, I have really no clue what's coming in here, aside from the Silas skin, which I made a review for on YouTube. Well, not really a review, more of a reaction, but I know Darkstar's coming. I think Darkstar Yorick is coming too, because I saw memes that fucking, the Maiden was hot. Now, I doubt we'll see that in any of the Chroma preview pictures, but we never know. Either way, let's see what else is going on. So, welcome to patch 14.21, aka the Swain patch, aka the patch I'm doing live at Twitch TV Tecnics channel. You should totally come there and watch me live. And the patch where I'm doing it because I have all my food near me, so we're going to hear some chomping, maybe, possibly. I'm probably going to go throughout this whole thing without eating, but let's see. So, we've got big gameplay updates to Swain. So, I've been hearing about this for a while, and this isn't the first time they've taken a crack at Swain. So, Swain, for those of you who don't know, for those of you who are a little bit newer to League of Legends, is not in his primal form. Swain actually got a VGU, a visual gameplay update, one of the biggest scopes that you could get as a champion. And basically what that means was they completely updated his look, and they mostly updated his gameplay. Now, usually when they do these things, they tie one big thing to the kit where they basically don't change it much. And it's kind of the same thing for Skarner. For Skarner, they basically kept his ult, even though they tried to make it better. I would argue they made it worse in more ways than one. But Swain is kind of the same thing. Swain's ult in the previous iteration was he turns into a giant bird man, quite literally. And it's a toggle ability where it drains mana over time, and you could toggle it on and off. And it basically sent out crows, and the crow would damage enemies, come back, and heal you. It's kind of a similar thing now, except now he just sucks you with a beam, and it's unlimited people. Before, I think it was max 3 targets, but I honestly don't know. I think it could be unlimited. I really don't remember it because it's been so long. But the biggest thing about Old Swain was he had a root, he had a dot amplification. Like, he would put a dot on you that would also amplify his damage. And I forgot what his Q was, honestly. But his W was the root. I think his E, or his W or his E, was the root and the dot amp. I forgot what the Q was. But the ult was basically the iconic part of Swain. And I honestly, to God, think old Swain was more fun and better, hands down. New Swain, once they got their heads out of their asses and they realized, like, oh, why don't we make his ult infinite? It added a lot more power to him. And this is where they've kind of been shadow buffing Swain, where they massively buffed his Q, because his Q didn't used to go through minions and stuff. Now it does. His E got better, his W got better, all things in his kit got better, especially his ult. But he's just still not good. And I think the big problem with it is he just really doesn't scale well. Now, they basically have 2 options here, right? Technically 3. The first option is completely overload his ult and make it the power fantasy, which I think I would like. Number 2, completely overload his base kit and make it so the ult doesn't matter, which is probably not what they're going to do unless they want to ruin the champion. Or number 3, completely rework him or revert him, which I doubt they're going to do. So realistically, 1 and 2 are more likely, but 1 is probably the most likely because his ult is Swain. Like, you play Swain for the ult. That's the big thing. That's the entire character. So I want to see if they're actually going to make him good, because like I said, I really liked Old Swain. Old Swain was really fucking fun. And it's sad to see the state he is in now, because by the numbers, he should do a lot of damage, but he just doesn't. Like, he's basically just a giant AoE slow with Rylai's. That's what he is. Like, his ult doesn't make him feel too much tankier, and it really doesn't feel like he's healing too much. Like, when you're ulting in Swain, people should be scared of you. People should be running away. It's kind of the same thing with Mundo. When Mundo ults, you kind of see, like, okay, he's ulting, it's going to be harder to kill him, we need to run. With Swain, it's just like, I feel like it's just ignored. It's so stupid. But let's keep reading. So, We're also updating the bounty rule on Summoner's Rift and Howling Abyss, aiming at making them active at more intuitive times and slightly decrease their average payouts. So they're really slowing down the game, which is what they kind of did with lowering all the damage across the board. They've also got lengthy sections and patch notes if you want to go into the details, which we will slightly. I really hope this doesn't take over an hour, but it probably will. On the game balance side of things, we're tweaking the on-hit space with changes to Blade of the Ruined King lethal tempo. So I'll touch on this more maybe when we get to it. Maybe I'll do it all now, but I feel like obviously lethal tempo came back and they changed it. I think it's good, but one thing I'm noticing is fights aren't that extended, at least in the early game. Now maybe it's just my elo or what, but obviously in ARAM this is a different story because I play TFT now as well. I play TFT, ARAM, Rift, you fucking name it, Spellbook, Ultimate Spellbook. That's what it's fucking called. You know, I play all these things now, and a lot of the times in regular Rift when I play DC with lethal, I feel like it's not really getting max stacked out, which is kind of sad. But either way, nerfing Sork shoes to be more comparable to other boots, which is crazy, and otherwise making a large number of champions changes aimed at tightening overall game balance, which they always do. They've got some balance changes for ARAM and Ultimate Spellbook, which is quite interesting. So I don't usually like to do this, but I'll at least say it a little bit here and now. In the future, in the next patch, we are not only, I believe, getting Ambessa, which I made a reaction to her as well. She's fucking crazy. But we're also getting big updates to ARAM. We're getting like a new arcane themed ARAM map, which I think they're changing a lot of big things with it too. I don't know if these are going to lead into more permanent changes, but again, I'll go over it more in next patch in 2 weeks if I can even cover it, because again, soon I'm going to have JOB. We'll see what we'll do then. But you know, as always, you know, I want to give the fans what they want. If they want me to keep doing patch notes, which I've done for many years now, then I will continue to provide. I will squat and produce, but only if there's a need, or sorry, only if there's a want. And even if there isn't, I might still do it anyway, because fuck you. But either way, yeah, so I'm curious what they're going to do with ARAM, but it's interesting to see we're getting some updates to ARAM now when I feel like the next patch is the really big one. So they're updating World's Viego border, nice. And that's pretty much it. All right, cool. So the TFT patch notes we're not going to go into because even though I play it, I don't care. I'm playing Revival anyway. Not that if you don't play TFT, you wouldn't know what that is, so it doesn't matter. Anyway, we'll go over the skins at the end. Let's get into champion bounties. We've overhauled the champion bounty system this patch. Our primary goal was to make bounties more intuitive. I really don't know how you could do that without just making it more visible. We still believe in champions getting a bounty on their head when they're doing well, but the way that was being calculated didn't always line up with player expectations. Yeah, because sometimes they would have it purely from just farming well, which was kind of a fringe case, especially in the elo I'm in, but very noticeable where it's like, wait, this guy has no kills, but he has a bounty. What the hell, right? What are they doing? Bounties are now purely based off of gold. Don't worry, Pike and Gangplank players were ignoring special gold income from champion kits. Wow. Eh. So this focus on gold means that a 0-0 Jinx can have a bounty on her head if she's earned enough from farming. A 0-0-15 general will also have a bounty on her head. Okay. Chain ganking the top lane Jax will be worth less gold on average, as giving away gold for assist devalues him faster. Okay, cool. Zion's 100 gold death won't put an extra 100 gold bounty on the Fiora, who's just trying to protect her turret. Wow. That's mainly for the boss, I think. We've tuned these new champion bounties generally decrease the total gold given in the favor of losing team more. So, okay, I'm just gonna quickly gloss through this. Yeah, so it's exactly what they say here. Games will snowball more slowly, and that's the whole thing they're trying to do. They're trying to slow down games a lot now. We've been reading player feedback and reacting quickly if any parts of this new bounty system are mistuned. So, they're not based off gold from champion-specific people, or things like Draven's Adoration, Twisted Fate's Loaded Dice. Never contribute. So bonus gold now is what they call that, I guess. Champion bounties are now accrued granularly. For example, it's not possible to have a bounty of +1 gold. Oh, I actually really like that. So I imagine in the old system, you could have like a bounty of like 99, but until it hit 100, you weren't going to get the 99. That's actually really nice. Bounties will not display on the scoreboard until they are worth at least 150. I hope they still tell you like how much it is though when you get it. The shutdown announcement will display for any champion killed with at least 150 gold bounty. So you would be getting more gold for kills. You will be getting bounties, but you just won't know it unless it's above 150. Okay, cool. A positive bounty is bonus gold given to a player to say, okay, okay, I'm not going to go into all this because we basically know the underlying reasoning. They're just slowing down the game. That's basically it. We don't need to go into the big things because I don't want to be here all night. Anyway, objective bounties. Oh my god. So this is interesting. In addition to champion bounties, we've also changing objective bounties. While the champion bounty changes were large in scope, this update is mostly the underhood cleanup aimed at making objective bounties turn on and off at more appropriate times. Void grubs now contribute. Bounty values have been decreased if the losing team is already successfully mounting a comeback. I feel like this is such a hard thing to like fine tune because comebacks like can easily be shut down too. So I'm curious if the system's ever gonna get it wrong, which it probably is. But this is, like they said, very under the hood stuff. So we really don't know. We expect objective bounties will occur slightly more often than they currently do, which is nice. But yeah, so interesting. So they're making objective bounties do less, but happen more often. Cool. Teemo VO. They introduced an entirely new VO. Okay. Some of those changes didn't quite hit the mark. Yeah, I didn't like Teemo's VO. It makes him sound too kiddish to me, but they're not going to change it as much as I want them to, sadly. And I'm seeing so many fucking Teemo memes online now. It's so stupid. I hate that this little fucker is back in the spotlight, but I'm also glad. Even though I don't like the champion, I'm glad that people can enjoy it. Even though they're sick fucking twisted freaks. Either way, so they're changing his laugh. Oh. It's just so iconic and fun to spam. So patch 40.1, we're going to be bringing back his iconic laugh. No way, they're bringing back the old laugh. That's crazy. That's actually crazy. Anyway, moving on to balance, finally. This is fucking insane. So, for those of you who don't know, right, I'm an ADC main. I don't know how you wouldn't know that, but, if this is your first video, hi and welcome. I'm an ADC main, right? I don't really like playing ADC without a duo buddy, or if I just have, like, a wish for fucking torment. So, recently, I've been going top and mid, and I've been one-tricking Gwen and Aesol. Not to say I don't play other things too. I play Veigar, I play Darius, Yorick, all these other things as well, Garen. But for the most part, 90% of the time I'm going Aesol or Gwen. I can't believe they're nerfing Aesol, because Aesol to me is a champion that obviously scales extremely hard, extremely well. But his early game, he's countered by so many people who could just bully him out. And I feel like Aesol is one of the harder champs in the game. Like, legitimately, I play Aesol a lot. And people like Talia, like Fizz, basically anyone who could get on him, anyone who can interrupt him stacking, because there's one of two things you have to do early. Well, actually, I always do this. It's not one of two, it's one of three. It's either A, you have to go full aggression, and that's how you're going to get stacks against the enemy, but most times you're going to lose the trade. Number two, you're going to try and go for minions, but most people could harass you out because you're literally sitting there like a sitting duck, which is asking for a beating. Or number three, you have to roam, which you can't do too early. So Aesol is extremely hard. Once you get later on, he's still obviously skill capped, but he's way better later, especially when you max out your Q and it's infinite. I honestly can't believe they're nerfing Aesol. It has to be because either like high elo / pro players have to be abusing him. I'm like shocked they're nerfing him, because they've already nerfed him so fucking much. It's so sad. So what are they doing? Aesol is a bit too strong at the moment, and he can use some being brought down to earth. As a scaler who reaches high heights late game, which he should, because his early game is so shit, wanting to push on his early game where he's supposed to be vulnerable so that players are correctly weak and paying the appropriate cost for Stardust scaling. Meanwhile, Singularity's nerf is intended to disproportionately affect low MMR games where he currently performs best. That's crazy. So that makes sense though, because in low MMR games, it's where he can really thrive, because people don't know what he does. People can like not punish him. In high MMR, he's probably shit. In low MMR, I can imagine he's good because people let him get away with what he's supposed to do. So the base health is going down by 20, that's fine. And then the Singularity damage, not cooldown thankfully, the damage is going down by 20% scaling. I honestly think that's fine. Most of your damage should be coming from your Q anyway. This makes his AoE not as good, but this is honestly, I'm perfectly okay with this. This is perfect. Cool. Azir! I wonder if they're buffing Azir for Worlds, but they're not, because I don't think the Worlds patch is being played on this patch. Actually, it definitely isn't. Never mind, I'm stupid. What do I think of Azir? I don't see him, so he's probably suck ass. Azir is overall a bit weaker than he's meant to be. This doesn't mean he's supposed to have a 50% win rate at all levels. He's rather difficult and doesn't have that many mains, but he's still weak. Nice. So they're just buffing rather his health regen and AD, base AD. This is alright. I feel like the base AD is probably the biggest thing, because you're gonna feel it when you're last hitting, but Azir's probably still shit. Okay. What do I think of Brand? Brand, as always, is annoying. He's either good or he's not that good. I don't think, like, it takes a lot for Brand to be not good, because he does easy poke percent health damage. Like, Brand is just that guy that a lot of people go if you don't really know how to play the game because he's so fucking easy. But let's see what they're doing. Brand is performing well in all roles, especially as a support, where he comfortably skips a mana item despite not utilizing his passive restore, which is ironic. You know, something Riot made to get him out of bot lane doesn't matter. Excuse me. Will not really get him out, but reward him going mid. This shows that he doesn't care enough about mana and casts his spells too freely, so we're targeting that freedom while also reducing some of his damage. Damn. So they're hitting him on a double whammy. That's actually crazy. So the mana regen's going down a little bit, which probably matters more early than anything. And then the passive damage, which is his bread and butter realistically, is going down by 1%. Death by 1,000 cuts, so that's that's gonna hurt, but let's see what else they're doing. The mana cost of Q is going up. Okay, cool. I feel like you're not really using Q unless you're full committing, so I feel like these nerfs, aside from like the 1% here, is really kind of just nothing. Like, this really seems like it's like a slap on the wrist that you would give like a billionaire for committing a crime. Crazy. Camille! Okay, Camille is, like I always say, kind of sleeper OP. I feel like her late game is actually fucking crazy. Now, granted, she is a skill cap champ, right? You need to actually know mechanics to play her. But, man, if you can play Camille, that shit is no fucking joke. She hurts. She gets, like, a shield no matter who she's facing. Like, people like Wukong are good against ADs. Like, people who do physical damage. Because his whole passive is he just gets armor. Camille gets a shield that deals with whatever the fuck she's facing. And she scales like an animal. Now, granted, you have to be actually mechanically good. But Camille is, in my opinion, one of the secret best champions in the game. Straight up. What are they doing? Camille is currently one of the best performing top laners in the game and is set for a nerf. What a surprise. Even though it's not. We're taking down her damage and health in order to give more champions a fighting chance. We like to specifically preserve her unique anti-tank properties. I mean, if she's anti-tank, just make her scale off max health. Like, are you kidding me? So the base health is going down by 20. That's whatever. The W, tactical sweep, is going down in base damage by 40. Wow. So the E, the wall dive, is going down in bonus AD. And then the R is now getting rid of its bonus base damage and it's just scaling off current HP. So, okay, her unique anti-tank properties, I guess, are still maintained, but okay. So Camilla's just straight up gonna do less damage on most of her stuff, but realistically speaking, I feel like the Q is one of the biggest things. Now, granted, it's not like you can ignore the E and the W, right? Those things do damage too. But it's the same thing with Asol, right? Like, if you're gonna nerf anything, just don't nerf the Q, because that's the main thing. Now, if you nerf everything else into the ground, then it matters. But until it's in the ground, which Riot will do with by, death by 1,000 cuts, until that ends up happening, these aren't too bad. They're not terrible. I mean, the minimum damage is kind of sad, but Camille is she's still, I think, gonna be really good because the Q is the bread and butter. The Corkster. What are we doing about Corkster? So I go over this every single fucking time. I don't know why Riot keeps touching him. I feel like they don't know what the fuck they're doing. But they tried to make him a bot laner. They failed, but now he pretty much just goes straight AD, which I like. It's kind of the same thing that happened to Jax. Jax went straight AD, and then they changed it to be hybrid. And I think he was broken a little bit and they had to nerf him. And it's kind of the same thing with CORKI. Straight AD, they changed him to hybrid. Now he's back to AD, but he's still an issue, I guess. I don't know. I still think CORKI is one of the best people in the game because he literally has a passive that gives him 15% extra damage. And it's not like, it's going to get reduced by armor MMR because it's true damage. And it could stack and proc off of, well, not really stack. It could proc off of Sheen and it can crit. It's fucking crazy. Like, his passive is actually fucking stupid. One of the most damaging passives in the fucking game. So, I think he's still really good. It's just, again, you have to get to late with him. But he's extremely good. And after the whole mid-culling of ADCs, I'm curious to where, do they only want CORKI to be the mid lane ADC, even though he's basically a mid laner for a long time now? Let's see. We're a bit cautious about how much daring we could make CORKI in the last patch, but now that we have a firmer grasp on things, especially his W, we're keen to do it again. Overall, we're hoping to upgrade his damage specifically in the early game. And as he earns gold with an eye to the parts of his kit and game time that align more strongly with bot lane. So again, they're trying to push in bot. So what are they doing? The passive is going from 15 to 20% bonus true damage, which is insanity to me. Like, let's just think about that. Imagine a champion getting a 20% damage buff that can't be mitigated. It is actually a true 20% buff. Like, usually when they buff champions' damage numbers, it's not going to be that actual damage because it gets reduced by armor and MR, which every champion has, right? To varying extents, obviously, but this is a straight up 20% just straight buff. That's already insane. Now, obviously, it's 5% because it's 15 to 20, but like, the fact that CORKI does 20% extra damage, it's like, are you kidding me? What? Now, obviously, this would be compensated if he just didn't do damage in general, but he does. Like, it's actually crazy to me. But either way, that's not all they're changing. So the Valkyrie, the W, is getting buffed again. It's increasing the bonus AD by 50, increasing the base damage by 50, and they're not touching the AP, thank God. That's actually crazy. The W does so much like unnecessary damage that you'd be shocked at. But granted, when you're using the W aggressively, right? When you're probably either gonna get the kill or you're feeding anyway. But the W does a surprising amount of damage. It's like a fucking mini rumble, like Jesus Christ. And then we're back to the ult. So the damage on the ult is getting buffed in 10%, 10 base damage, 10%. Again, the missiles are not what they used to be. They're a lot slower now, but they allegedly hit harder. And if you get that big one, oh mama, this is just compounded. CORKI got giga buffed, in my opinion. This is a giga buff to CORKI. Elise, I hate this champion. Her armor growth is decreased. She sucks. Fiddlesticks. So this is really interesting because I actually am watching Worlds now because we're at quarterfinals, and man, it's so sad. So if you don't want spoilers, click away now. But or click away for the next 30 seconds. But yeah, man, yo, Gen G versus FlyQuest. FlyQuest was the last hope of NA, and in the last game to decide it all, after they choked it, they went Fiddle. I salute them, but God, was it such a bad idea. But I liked it. But either way, so I'm curious if they're going to buff Fiddle, because Fiddle did not look good there. Now, obviously, Fiddle can be a terror in the low elos, which is, you know, kind of what he does in the lore as well. He just bullies like normal people, even though he's a primordial demon, first of 10. Um, I think Fiddlesticks is just an alt bot. Like, it's Swain, but good. Like, it's literally just Swain, but actually it works. So let's see what Fiddlesticks is doing. They're actually nerfing him. Fiddlesticks is a bit too strong. We want to plot some of the power. We want to preserve its most iconic abilities, which is obviously its ult. So we're targeting Q since it won't miss damage that much. Honestly, they're not wrong here. Even though the Q does do decent damage, it's not crazy. I would have preferred they nerfed E, though. I feel like E is kind of a bait, like, damage ability. You think it's going to do damage, and it doesn't. It's more for the silence, but, and it's really easy to hit. So the Q, oh my god, look at all these disgusting numbers, the way they made this look. So the Q is going to lose 1%, and the amp damage is going to go down by 2%. Fiddle's fine. Galio, he's probably going to get nerfed because he was played in Worlds. Galio's hard to deal with in lane and only gets more difficult to kill once he purchases Hollow Radiance, which I barely ever build, because I barely ever play these characters. We're nerfing his almost highest in the game base mana to increase his early vulnerability. So they're making it from 500 to 410. That's a really big chunk they're taking out. Holy shit. You know, again, they're almost taking out 100, which out of 500 is almost 20%. It's the same thing I said with CORKI. Even though CORKI wasn't a 20% buff, it was 5%. Having 20% of anything taken out is kind of crazy. Or just 20% of anything in general is kind of crazy to think about. But, okay, you know, Galio can't spam as much. This is fine. I actually think Galio is extremely, extremely good. He's extremely versatile. He could do damage, surprisingly so. He's tanky. He can roam. He can taunt. He could CC. He could do a lot of shit. And it's not even to the point where, like, he counters magic people, which is what he's supposed to do, right? Like, if you're going Rammus into mages, you're kind of like, I don't want to say you're trolling, but it's kind of like you're really at a disadvantage there from your champion's ideal. Galio, he's supposed to be like the AP, like Rammus, right? The person who counters AP, but it really doesn't feel like that matters. His thematic, like, really, it helps him, but it's not defining him like it is Rammus, at least. But yeah, no, this sucks a little bit, but I think Galio's strong, so this is fine. GP, thank God I don't see this guy in my game. People like Tobias Fate make me piss myself when I see Gangplank. And this champion is basically like Asol. Shitty early game, although if you're good, you can make it work. Probably similar to Asol as well. And yeah, no, Gangplank is just stupid, man. And they've nerfed him a bunch. Obviously, they've reworked him, nerfed him, buffed him over time, but I feel like he's still decent. So I'm curious to see what they're gonna do. Gangplank has slowly been hit by a couple of systems over time, and could use some more power back into him. I think the biggest nerf that I've heard, and this is coming from the horse's mouth itself, Tobias Fate. The biggest nerf was always taking out corrupting, because it helped GP's early game so much. But let's see what they're doing. Losing man from biscuits, crit system reworks, and his build losing essence review, which is huge, have had a pretty large impact on his laning phase, wanting to slightly increase the mana regen to compensate. So it's going up by 0.5, which I feel like is nothing. And then the recharge time of the E, which is actually, like, even though it's 1 second here, this is actually huge because Gangplank gets cooldown at the asshole. And this is the main part of his kit aside from his Q and his ult and his W. Like, the E is the most damaging part of his kit, and this shit is stupid. To have this go down by 1 second is actually kind of dangerous. Oh no, man. Oh no, man. Fuck. They're touching my girl. So, similar to Asol, right? Like I said in the beginning, I play exclusively almost Asol and Gwen. Asol mid, Gwen top. Asol got nerfed, although it wasn't too bad. I hope it's the same for Gwen. Gwen, in my opinion, is still one of the best late game 1v1ers in the entire game. She does percent max health damage out the fucking ass. Half of it sometimes is usually true damage as well from the Q. It is actually insane how much damage Gwen does. I think she's amazing. I think she's lovely. I think she's cool. She's a little hard to play, of course. But wow, is this one of the hardest scalers in the fucking game. That's not an infinite scaler either, which is crazy. So it's sad to see they are finally nerfing her, and they're nerfing the part that I think matters the most, the passive. So let's see what they're doing. Gwen has proven to be exceptionally strong as of late is due to a meaningful nerf. Her power curve is steeper than we'd like overall, which is true. Like, oh my god, her late game, like, it's actually crazy how disgusting you kill people. So we don't want her to weaken her early game laning phase, which is why they're targeting scaling. We do want to make sure she's not quite as dominant late, which is sad because that's her power fantasy. We also like to nudge her builds a bit more towards the skirmisher build, which is Riftmaker, Cosmic Drive, which is ironic because the die-hard Gwen mains say Riftmaker is a total bait. Unless towards Burst Mage, Shadow Flame, and Deathcap, which is the actual fun Gwen, sadly. Which is why we're targeting AP ratios. This is really fucking sad, man. But eventually, I don't think what they're doing here is enough. I mean, it does hurt, right? 0.72 to 0.6, it does hurt. But it's just going to incentivize you to build damage more because now you need it as a crutch. Before you can argue, this is the weird part, right? Maybe I'm wrong. I really don't know balance like to this minute level. But in my mind, it's like, okay, if you nerf the scaling, then she has to be relying on building damage or else she's going to be trash. Because she really doesn't offer any utility, aside from a slow. Or, if her damage is good, right? If her scalings are good, then you can make the argument, well, oh, now she has different build options because she doesn't need to build too much damage. Well, no, on the opposite side of the spectrum, if she builds so much damage and she has great scalings, then she's just going to nuke. Why would you build anything else? It doesn't make sense. And then on the flip side from before, if her damage is, if her scaling is lower, now she has more of an incentive to build healthy to try and even live because she's not going to be doing as much damage. But again, in a similar way, I could see it to where you're kind of forced to build damage now and not Riftmaker and Cosmic Drive, even though I think Cosmic Drive is really good on her. It's very interesting. I don't know which way it's going to go. It's really the community going to decide, but I'm just sad Gwen's getting nerfed. Not entirely implausible, not entirely like unwarranted, but sad nonetheless. And I really don't know how to run the numbers for this. It's really something I got to see because later on in the game, like she reaches like 3.5 to 4%, if not more, of maximum health per like passive application, which again is every auto, is 9 times with the Q, I believe, 9 times with the ult. Maybe not 9 times with the Q. I think it's like 5 or 6 times with the Q, but at max stacks. But holy fucking shit, like it's sad, but it's somewhat understandable. Hwei. Now that people know how to play Hwei, I feel like he's actually an annoying bitch and really fucking good. Players have gotten much better at Hwei over the last year, true. So it's finally time to nudge him down. Finally. We like to bring down his early lane poke with QQ flat damage, which is ironic because I see him going bot and I see him fucking ass. It's scaling into mid game, late game, and lastly, we want to increase the cooldown on his CC. So the QQ damage is. Are you fucking kidding me? So it's going down by 10. It's literally nothing. It's not even getting changed scaling wise besides 5%. This is nothing. And then E, Subject Torment. The cooldown's going up by 1. Always fine. Irelia. So before we go into Irelia, let me drink some fucking water here. Holy shit. Oh, my throat is killing me. My creatine monohydrate infused water. So Irelia, like I say, I'm really bad at her. I think she's really good. I think she's... I don't know if she's overloaded, because they did take a slap at her before. But, I think Irelia is kind of in the middle. It's a little weird. I still think she's good if you're good at her, but now it's actually a little bit hard to be good at her. You have to actually have a brain. But let's see. Irelia is quite sad currently in both top and mid, and overall reliant on waiting for her first item spike, which is how it should be, I hope. Because she scales really well, too. I feel like. We like to buff her base kit, especially early game. We want to emphasize good ability usage, so these buffs are intended to make using her most important spell more impactful. Oh? So the Q cooldown is going down by 1. The mana is going down by, again, 25%, not even 20%, 25% from 2015. The damage is going up, scaling wise, and the bonus damage to minions is getting nerfed, I guess, to compensate. Already, this feels crazy. Like, holy fucking shit. The R, Vanguard's Edge, Q cooldown reduction removed. Oh, wow, okay. So, I don't know if that's more of a nerf or a buff, but, I guess her laning is a lot stronger now, especially because of the mana, the cooldown, the damage. Like, holy fucking shit. She Qs you so many times, too, it's actually crazy. Excuse me. Irelia is decently better after this. Oh, come on. Not Kaisa, man. Not Kaisa. I feel like Kaisa is very weird, because... And I always say this. I always say Kaisa is extremely hard to balance around, because... You know, you nerf her AD, she goes AP. You nerf her AP, she goes AD. You nerf both, then you're nerfing, like, everything about the character, and they need to sell skins. So... And Kaisa is a really nice AD. She's like an AD assassin hybrid. Like... She's an AD who can go and kill on her own and can kind of like hunt you down a little bit. Like that ult is the entire thing that really ties it all together and makes it feel well. But aside from that, the passive is probably the most important thing. Now, they've been testing, from what I heard, changes because they don't really like AP Kaisa, even though they pretend they do, but they don't. They've been testing things with W about making it go through the wave. And from what I saw, it was actually ridiculously, stupidly, disgustingly broken. Because she became a wave clearing animal. But they obviously didn't go through with that because they're just touching her passive here. But I feel like Kaisa, it's not as bad as people like Cassante, but she's another little bit of an issue. She's an issue that comes up every so often. So what are they doing? Kaisa passive damage decrease. Kaisa wound up as one of the big winners from the recent item shakeup, is now a bit too strong. We're hitting the passive AP ratio slightly and her per stack plasma damage more meaningfully in order to make her less bound to CC supports and leave crit builds less affected. So they're pushing her towards AD. So what are they doing? The initial damage is going down by 1 early. Okay. Excuse me. But the scaling is going down a little bit harder. Okay. Per stack damage is going down by almost half later. Wow, that's crazy. And the max damage, which is the thing I think matters the most, is now going to lose 1% AP and then a decent amount of base. Honestly, I mean, the on-hit part is getting decreased, but as long as the actual, like, popping isn't getting fucked, I think this is fine. Because the popping has to do with, like, missing health, so they're not really touching that. They're more touching just the on-hit parts. I think this is honestly fine. The mage one shouldn't really be killing you with autos. It should be killing you with proccing the actual passive all the way. So that's fine. This is okay. I think this is fine. I go crit AD Kaisa anyway, so. Karthus, very simple. They're nerfing Zult by 5%. I think that's fair. I think if they nerf Karthus in any other way, he becomes very ass, because he's a very feast or famine champion. Literally, no gap close, no mobility, no move speed, no nothing. It's just he can slow you with the wall. and that's it. Like, this is a very simple champion, so they're just slightly nerfing him. This is fine. Kassadin, I feel like hasn't really seen the light of day. I feel like they really need to buff him, but let's see. Kassadin was a big winner from my recent reductions to early game snowball and is now too strong, which is ironic because I haven't really seen him. We think his early game is appropriate, but that his ratio should continue to go down. See, it's so sad because Kassadin is known as one of the few well, not few, but one of the premier mid lane ultra scalers. Like, if he scales to late game, God help you in heaven. You better hope the Rapture's coming before he gets to you, because he's Satan. But the Q damage is going down by 10%. Okay, that's sad. And then the E damage, which is his bread and butter, is going down by 5. So the E is technically going to do better than the Q, but it was always like that anyway, because it's AoE and it's charging from the enemy. So, Kassadin's slightly worse, but not too bad. Oh my god, Kale. There's no way. There's no way they're nerfing Kale too. Kale can use some help as our late game scaling Justice Bringer. We're not trying to make her become a dominant laner, but the current cost of her heal makes it almost wrong to even cast. Yeah, and her heal kind of sucks dick too. So the mana cost is going not way down, but decently down. That's pretty good. Kale's better. I really want to get to Swain, man. Where the fuck is Swain? Malphite, Rock. They're increasing his base health. They like Malphite being simple, and I guess he's not that good, so they're buffing a very base stat with him. I feel like this does next to nothing, though. Cool. Oh my god, what are they doing to Nasus? So, if they're going to do anything to Nasus, I'm assuming they're going to touch his AP mid lane shit, because I've heard, and I don't know if they addressed this yet, and if it worked, but, Nasus basically was going mid and spamming Emax, aka AP Nasus was the thing again. I'm pretty sure they kind of like nerfed it, either with the Ams or just with direct nerfs, but I don't remember. But what the fuck are they doing now? Nasus has been quite strong since patch 14.19 reduction in gold value, which means again the game snowballs later, which allegedly should make Nasus stronger, even though I think most of his strength is in his mid game. You know, most of the game is low elo, so I guess that wasn't the case. So it's time for a nerf. His early sustain is quite high, true, considering how well he scales, which is sad because that's one of the things he needs. We're targeting to sustain how early damage to give his opponents more of a counterplay window before he stacks up. You know, it's ironic too, because I always say there's a time limit people have playing against Nasus, and depending on how bad the champ pokes him out or outright beats him, the time limit can either be really low, really high, but there is a time limit, no matter what. Unless you're Gwen, maybe. But the lifesteal is going down by 3%, which is big. I mean, the fact that he was gaining 12% lifesteal in general was actually sort of crazy. Like, Nasus's passive is one of the best passives in the game because you actually notice the difference. You notice the lifesteal. It's actually crazy he got 24% lifesteal later on in the game for free. Actual bonkers. So what are they doing to the Q? As long as they're not lowering the cooldown, it's honestly fine. The bonus physical damage is going down by 5. This is completely fine. Neela. So Neela is interesting. This is where I'm gonna bring in a little bit of my prowess with Wild Rift, even though I don't play it. My viewers play it on Twitch TV/Tecnics channel, and they tell me that some champions are very different. Neela is one of those champions where I feel like on Wild Rift she's really good. On Rift she's basically non-existent because either A, she's really fucking hard and people don't know how to play her, or B, I feel like she's just not good. And obviously the mains can do good with her, but I feel like this champion's played by like 10 people. So it's like, what the fuck is the point? I really honestly truly believe she was made as a counter, and not a counter in game, but like by Riot standards, they didn't like Yasuo going bot, they made her, but I feel like she's just, I don't know, man, it's too hard to play. She is good, she is unique, right? And if you can master her, I'm sure she's very fun. But man, it is just, she is fucking hard because bot lane's hard in general. Like, holy shit. So let's see what she's doing. We're delivering some power positive quality of life changes to Neela this patch, much like last time. The Q timeout and R lockup should make her smoother to play with very little power impact. While the instant EQ is often a requested feature that we think represents a more significant change, we'll keep our eyes peeled. So what are they doing? Q. Neela's EQ combo missile now deals damage instantly in the area rather than when the missile hits the enemy. Neela's auto attack should no longer cancel when her Q buff runs out. Wow. And her R. Neela's first auto attack coming out of her ultimate should no longer be slightly delayed. I feel like these are just like bug fixes almost. Neela's the exact same, let's be real. Slightly better, but very, very minorly, I think. Kiana, Kiki. I feel like Kiana's not that good because assassins are not that good, and they nerfed the shit out of her. So what are they doing? Health regen is up, which is okay, and then the bonus damage is up by double. Holy shit! Now again, 10 to 20 is literally doubled, but you know, 20 is still reasonable, I think, and it's on her W too. Excuse me, which I believe is her auto or her proc when she uses an ability, which isn't crazy, but slightly better. Slightly better. Senna, oh my god, we're almost to Swain. I feel like Senna is so fucking disgusting and broken, and this is where someone like Riot August, right, the longtime Mac Daddy of League, he's even telling people, like he's begging people, please build Black Cleaver on Senna. You're gonna notice the difference. I think Senna is kind of in the Camille situation, where she's low key really, really fucking good, but not many people know it. Even though people do, but they just don't play right because it really needs you to be in tune with your support, which is sad. But she's really fucking good. Senna's currently the queen of support picks and needs to be taken down a peg. Yes, thank God. So her armor's going down, so she's squishier, which is good. I already think she's squishy as shit, too. Not maybe Sona tier, because Sona's like paper, but maybe right under that. And the armor growth is going down, too. So I honestly think this is fine. They're just making her more risk, more reward, which is great. Sivir. Sivir fucking sucks. Sivir has languished as generically a bit weak, which we're hoping to rectify by giving her more control over her early and mid game. Interesting. For those who don't want to do the math, these Q changes represent a buff for levels 1 to 12 and a slight nerf afterwards. So they're changing her power, where I think nerfing the Q later on is honestly fine, because later on the main damage you're going to do is with W anyway. So, how bad are they doing this? So it's going from total to bonus AD. And they're buffing the base damage by a shit ton. Wow. Yeah, so it's just better early. Cool. I mean, Sivir's not known for her late game anyway. She's good, but oh man. Alright, on to the piece de resistance. Swain. So thank God I mentioned more of the stuff about Swain in the beginning. I'll reiterate it. Basically, they reworked him. I think his old rework was more fun. And there's basically one of three things they could do with him. Number one, overload his ult, which they're probably going to do. Number two, overload his base kit, which would kind of ruin the fantasy. Or number three, scrap the thing entirely, make a new one, which they're probably not going to do at all. Oh god, my nose. I feel like I'm getting sick by something. From this filth! But either way, Swain. We changed a lot. You should probably read this one. Let's see what they're saying. So the main thing is just Swain just doesn't do enough damage. Like, sure, you stack infinite health, but it's like, what does it mean? It doesn't really get backed up by anything, where it's not like Sign, where you could go like a troll, like full damage AD build and you actually hurt. With Swain, it's very much the opposite, where it's like, no matter how much health you get, you feel like you're not doing much anyway. You're an AoE slowbot. At least to me. Good CC, though. It's demon time! Swain is receiving sweeping update aimed at making him much more consistent and giving him more personal agency over his success and failures. He's receiving this increase in personal agency largely through significant buffs to Never Move, his E, which is, I think, a big... His E and his W really need to be looked at. Like, his ult is okay, his Q is okay. His W and his E are the main things. His E basically makes him a support, and his W is probably the worst part of his fucking kit. It works really well and synergizes with the E, but I feel like that shit for landing that combo, it should... I don't want to say nuke you, but it should do a lot more than it does right now. Because the W is long as fuck cooldown. But either way. Overall shift in power from his ultimate towards his base kit. Wow, so they're going with the second one. They're taking it out of his ult. No way. I already thought his ult was like kind of weak too, though, but that's fine. So Death's Hand, his Q, I believe, is doing 10% more damage at long range. Has lower base mana cost to make these range trades better. These buffs are being compensated with a small decrease to his melee range damage output, which is fine, meaning Swain won't be so strongly defined by his best and worst matchups. Vision of Vampire is being compressed to now require skill rank ups as strong as before, so is W. Primarily front-loading the slow and reveal duration, it's meant to still be a competitive option to max second, but should leave room for Nevermore's increased importance. So the big thing here, it sounds like. Nevermore's changes are the most important in this patch. Its acceleration has been re-implemented with more modern missile tech, removing randomness from its travel time. I didn't really feel like its travel time was random, but Its return is now much more consistent and substantially faster, providing Swain much better access to crowd control. Its damage is also being shifted entirely into the explosion, which should make it better at damaging enemy champions. The increases expected output per cast has necessitated nerfing its cooldown. Wow. And his passive healing to compensate. That's crazy. So his R. Demonic Ascension is meant to represent less of Swain's overall power, which is sad because that was the fantasy. Allowing Swain to rely more on his stronger basic abilities, the chief nerf here is to cooldown. Though it now scales plainly with ability haste, the overall cooldown is substantially longer and the healing and damage are generally weaker, which is crazy because the healing was already shit. But for the Swains who are strong enough to take over games, they're getting multiple demon flares per ultimate. That's crazy. He's not attacks these extra casts every time he transforms, but when Swain really starts carrying, that'll come with extra spice. So our hope with these changes is that Swain feels like much more of a well-rounded and fulfilling champion to play, aka not a piece of shit that does no damage, a centerpiece battle mage who can wear down his opponent, sustain himself from his success, and still strategically aid his teammates across the map. Let me break this down. Strategically aid his teammates across the map, barely ever happening, that's a joke. Sustain himself from his success, that's a joke too. Wear down his opposition is probably the only thing that's accurate, so what are they doing? So the base stats, slightly better, slightly worse. Passive, the heal is going from 3 to 6 HP linear, which isn't even necessarily a buff or a nerf. It's just a difference, which I think overall results in my opinion, a buff, but that's just me. It's scaling linearly means it doesn't stick to 3. So Q. This hand, the AP, or sorry, the mana cost is going down a little bit. The bolt damage is going up. The extra bolt damage is going... I don't know if that's better or worse. But the maximum damage is going slightly down, but scales slightly better. Ugh, okay. So the W Visions of Empire is getting slightly buffed damage-wise. Slow duration is getting nerfed, which is sad as shit. The slow is going up by a little bit, but for the duration they're taking out, I feel like it's not worth it. And the reveal duration is 6 seconds. That doesn't matter. W still sucks dick. So the cooldown of E, it's going eventually down to 10 seconds. The mana is going up. The missile speed is slightly faster, but also slower on the way back, which I guess is fine. I don't really know why there's a difference there. Maybe it's not on the way back. Who knows? So the travel time is different. Return speed is different. It's a lot higher, though. Holy shit. The width is a little wider. Maximum damage is a little bit better scaling. Pass-through damage removed. And then detonation damage, aka when you pull them, which you should always be doing anyway, is actually going way up. Wait a minute. That's actually a giga buff. 75 to 240. And then 25 to 60 is actually crazy. No longer displays root particles on targets killed by the explosion. Okay, that's fine. Wait, he's actually getting giga buffed. You're doing essentially like double the damage almost. That's actually fucking wild. Holy shit. Wow. And then his R, Demonic Ascension. Demon Flare may now be repeatedly cast every 8 seconds. Unaffected by ability haste up to 100 times. The fact that there's a limit and it's 100 is so stupid. First cast is still available after 2 seconds. So cooldown 120 no matter what when transformation begins. That's actually an extreme buff, especially in ARAM. That's actually so good. The Demon Flare damage is going up base, lower scaling, which is fine. The decaying slow is fine. It's getting better actually. Damage per second is going down by almost half. Holy shit. Which is fine. That really didn't do a lot of damage in general. The heal per second is also going down scaling-wise. But it now scales off bonus HP, which is crazy. So it might actually end up doing more eventually. And then the E cooldown reduction is removed, but that's honestly fine. Okay, I'm gonna be honest. Swain did get good stuff here. It's just I'm sad they didn't really make the W better, but I got to see the E changes with my own eyes, but the ult change is kind of crazy, especially in ARAM, no less. But this actually makes him really fucking good. Like, the E change, that nuke on the E is actually crazy. So it might be actually good. So Talon, W damage increased, Assassins suck, Talon sucks. The damage is going up by base 10, scaling 10. Whatever. Talon is Talon. We have to be careful with Talon though, because he's a very, very good early game champion. The patch notes are something to have sex with. That is crazy. Either way, Taric. What do I think of Taric? Tarek is, I think, a very, very good support. He's not like the upper echelon, right? Like the upper echelon is like Lulu. Mm, actually, maybe he is. I feel like the only difference is, but I could say this about the other sports as well. He's actually upper echelon. I do believe it. He's a little harder than the rest, but not hard enough to put him like lower. Uh, Excuse me, Jesus Christ. I think Tark is one of the best supports in the game. His only issue is he has low range, and you need to really be good at the game. You need to predict things, but he is really fucking good. Like Tark is extremely fucking good. If you can play him, he's great. He's just hard. I think he's hard. Harder than the other ones too. Like Lulu, I think is kind of easier. I think Lulu has a higher skill ceiling though. Like she could be harder at the max level, but Tark is really good, just harder at the initial level. But what are they doing? Tark has been one of the statistically strongest supports for a while, despite not feeling like he's winning the game for his team, which is crazy because I feel like Tark's kind of carry. He started performing even better this split, so it's finally time for a nerf. So the W bonus armor is going down by 3%. That's fair. I honestly think that's fair. Teemo, everyone's favorite, or least favorite, Little Devil. So what are they doing? They're buffing his base health, and his W is getting somewhat buffed. Teemo's basically the same. Who cares? Viego, reducing his armor growth. He is doing a bit too well. This is fine. Viego used to be a problem for a long time. I finally think he's in like a position where he's somewhat tame. Volley. So Volley's interesting. I've played in the past AD Volley when AP was rampant, and obviously it didn't go well. It made me feel like AD was shit. But I'm finally seeing a resurgence of AD Volley, and it's actually looking somewhat decent. Not great, but decent. The Volley should get a buff here. Volley has been strong for a while, and we're finally nerfing him. Wait, what? Rod of Ages Navori build is really interesting and unique, but his cooldowns aren't tuned around his newfound CTR success. Wow. They're nerfing it by 2 seconds. It's not nothing, but it's fine. That's the only thing they're nerfing that's fine. So Deadly Plumage. The touching size W. Zaya is kind of strong. She's almost in a similar way to CORKI, where she literally just gets like a bonus percentage damage on, I don't want to say the whole thing of what she's good at, but pretty much half of what she's good at. Because half of her kit is the E, the other half is her autos because she's an ADC. But in the moment where she activates her W, she's basically doing 20% more auto damage, which is again insane to think about. And apparently she's not good enough, which I agree with because she needs to scale. And she's a little bit harder than your everyday AD. You need to know how to position the feathers right as well. But her W going from 20 to 25 is actually insane. That's literally a 25% buff from 20 to 25. It's 5%, but it ends up being 25% in terms of totality. That's actually crazy. Like it doesn't seem like a lot, but this is wild to me. Yone. I'm surprised they're not touching Yasuo if they're touching Yone. Yone is a touch too powerful right now, and his combat lacks a bit of counterplay. That's probably because it's the era of like tankier people, and Yone does, and Yasuo does too in a way, but Yasuo does it against people who stack armor. Yone just does it against people who have health. But what are they doing? He's receiving a simultaneous nerf to Blade of the Ruined King, a smaller buff to lethal. Oh. With those in mind, we think a tap 2's more guaranteed damage should put his power level where it's appropriate. When I see this, when I play Yone, it kind of boggles my mind that his W is as easy to hit, and it does as much max health as it is. So they're nerfing it by 1%, which is honestly perfectly reasonable. It's AoE as well. Like, you gotta remember that. If you're hitting like the full team rate, what is that? 15, 30, 45, 60, 75. You're doing 75% max health over all of them. Like, it's crazy. But 1% is nothing. This is fine. Then we go to Yorick. Yorick is interesting. I feel like Yorick is a champion where if you have a lot of good game knowledge, game sense, especially with macro play, he's extremely fucking good. There's obviously other builds that makes him more not really care about macro, more just care about killing, aka lethality builds, but I believe they nerfed that. So Yorick is interesting. I feel like he's not that good, and he's getting a skin, so he's probably going to get buffed. Let's see. Yorick is especially dominant in shit low. It'd be nice if he wasn't so reliant on his opponents failing to realize they can one-shot your ghouls with any basic. Wow. So we're pulling back some Mistwalker damage to make him less reliant on their unreliable damage. Oh? So his Mistwalker damage is going from 2 to 4, but it's scaling less off of Yorick's damage. Wow. So, I mean, the ghoulies definitely matter, but I wonder if this is more of a nerf to lethality, if anything. It's weird. Um, hmm. I feel like this is such little damage in general when you're dealing with the ghoulies. Now, granted, it's multiplied by 4, so maybe it is, Jin's favorite number. Maybe it is mattering, but it's something I'd really have to play Yorick nonstop to really feel. Because this overall is a nerf. I just don't know how much you're going to feel it. But that basically concludes the champion changes. Okay, let's go to them. So Sork Shoes, they said they're making it a little bit worse to match up with everything else. Blade of the Ruined King, they are making this worse in general. Wow, okay, from 6% to 5%. So again, they're really just trying to slow down the game, and this is crazy. Runes, recommended runes for TF has been shifted. Cool. No one cares. Lethal. We believe lethal tempo is slightly underpowered. I believe that too. Not even on melees, just in general. I feel like people just can't ramp it up, which maybe they're fine with. But the melee attack per stack is going up by 1%. Now, obviously, that scales over time because this stacks up to what, 5 times or whatever. So, slight buff, nothing crazy. But finally, on to ARAM. Again, I think with ARAM, we're not going to see anything crazy until next patch where they're actually putting in hardcore map changes that I hope stay permanently. Like they're actually expanding Butcher's Bridge a little bit, and obviously it's going to be the Piltover Zon one for a little bit at least. It's sad it's not permanent, but this is where people are questioning, oh, is Riot going to sell this as a map skin eventually? You know, if they do, I think people are even asking for it too, like they want these things. And Riot, for some reason, doesn't want to do two things. They don't want to like monetize their game more in the right ways that people want, that they do in all their other games, like with map skins, voiceovers, all that other stuff, right? Voice packs. But this is also where they just don't want to do crossovers in general, unless it's something that they made, which is Arcane. Like, we need anime crossovers, we need licensed fucking skins in the game, man. Like, look at a game like Smite, man. It's actually crazy. But yeah, they're probably gonna change more of ARAM next time, and hopefully more of it becomes permanent. But we will honestly see. But let's see what they're doing. Nerfs, they overbuff Neela, they're nerfing her. No one cares. Two champions have been underperforming in team fights. Kraken Slayer has been underused compared to other ADC items. Yeah, because we need AoE, which is static. Largely due to the range modifiers to give ADCs another viable choice. Now we're making adjustments to this item. So what are they doing? Um, okay, whatever. It's ARAM, no one really cares. Ultimate Spellbook. Cool. No one cares about this either. Bug fixes quality of life. That's pretty much cool. Oh, yeah, yeah. Look. Wow. Oh, wow. And then upcoming skins and chromas. So the Viego splash border is in, finally. And let's take a look at all the skins. So, Prestige Dark Cosmic Diana literally looks like a porn skin. Like, this makes me hard. That is amazing. My lord. It's ironic, too, because Diana's supposed to be about the moon, not supposed to be about black holes, but it is what it is. Dark Cosmic Diana looks a lot more like an actual Dark Cosmic, which is ironic because the only other Dark Cosmic I believe is Jin, which means she was Cosmic and then she turned Dark Star. But wow, Prestige Dark Cosmic is a beautiful fucking skin. I'm curious to see the end game, but the splash art alone, she literally looks like a goddess of beauty, mind you. Darkstar Zoe, I think, is a pretty good skin. I think it's really good. Zoe has a lot of skins, but I think this is a good one. Darkstar Kaisa, I'm never going to say no to a ADC skin, except if it's Ezreal. This is nice. Darkstar Silas, I think the end game shares too much similarity with something like, what the fuck is that shit called? Snow Moon, I believe. Like Snow Moon or stupid Blood Moon Silas, whatever one it is. So, I think it shares overlap with the end game, but it looks nice. It's all right. I wish someone else got, but it's okay. And then Darkstar York, I think, is the sleeper really good like skin of this patch. I think it's probably gonna be York's best skin. I certainly love it, but yeah. Overall, the lineup isn't bad. The look is always good. I think the look is kind of too the same. Like I don't know what it is because I love space, right? I really really like space, but seeing a lot of Dark Star skins, I feel like there might eventually be an issue with the champions don't look unique enough from each other. They look very, very I don't want to say monochromatic, but they look very generalized to look very similar to each other. It's very easy in my eyes without very big indicators like Kaisa's little back wing things to really confuse them sometimes. Like they look too generic is the best way to say it. Yeah, here's the chromas. Oh wow, look at them in all their glory. Really nice, really cool. I feel like this is a skin line very similar to Infernal. And Infernal was kind of trash. Now, again, I love Darkstar, especially like the Thrushkin. The Thrushkin, the Jin skin blew it out of the park. These things look a little weird. Like the Kaisa one, let me pull this up on my side here. Yeah, I don't know. Kaisa one looks weird. Like some of these, I don't know if they deserve them, but they just look fucking weird. Like Darkstar Silas, I would not think this is a legendary. Now, granted, I haven't really seen the animations too much, but oh man, Darkstar York I think is probably the best one though. Hands down, I think Darkstar York is like it's like god tier. It's a shame he didn't get the legendary, man. It's really sad that it was Ice Ship, man. Either way, that's gonna be the patch. So let's go over it. Let's give our rating. Finally be done with this, of course, hour-long video. I knew it. I knew it'd always go to an hour, man. Fuck. So they did the bounty change, which is gonna increase game time, which I personally like. Acel got nerfed, which is sad. Camille deserved it a little bit. CORKI is insane. See, like the CORKI one is actually fucking crazy. Anything else? Gwen got nerfed. So Acel, Gwen got nerfed. CORKI got buffed, which sadly I don't play as much as I wish. Kaisa got nerfed a little bit, but not in any meaningful way. Nessus got nerfed, sadly. Neela got whatever. And then Swain actually, I think, will help him overall. Like, Swain is a bit better. Honestly, I'll rate this patch a... God. I'll rate it a 6 out of 10. 6 out of 10 Mark Morales. I was going to rate it worse, but that CORKI buff and the Swain buff really saved it. This could have been a nonsense patch. I would have probably rated it below 5 if those two things didn't happen. Yeah, not much is good in this patch, but the good things are decent. So, 6 out of 10 Mark Morales out of 10. That's going to be it. I hope everyone enjoyed, and I'll hope you'll join me next time for patch notes, especially live at Twitch TV Tecnics channel, which is a lie because I usually record this offline. But either way, excuse me, I hope everyone watches me there, and I hope everyone enjoyed, and we'll see you for the next time, if I decide to keep doing these.